You won't believe what happened at my wedding. I need to tell this story because even today, 3 years later, I'm still in shock when I remember it. My name is Amanda. I'm 28 years old, and this is the craziest story I've ever experienced. It all started 6 months before the wedding. I was engaged to Ricardo, my boyfriend of 5 years. He was perfect in every way. Except for one small detail, his mother, Donna Marcia. From the first day we met, she made it clear that I wasn't good enough for her son. Just imagine, I have a law degree, work for a multinational company, and have always been polite and respectful to her, but nothing seemed to be enough. When we announced our engagement, the first thing she said was, "Are you sure, Ricardo?" She seems a bit of a gold digger. In front of everyone, guys. I pretended not to hear, but inside I was seething. Ricardo always defended his mother, saying that she was just like that I needed to understand that she only wanted the best for him. The wedding preparations were a real battleground. Donna Marcia questioned every decision we made. The church was substandard, the catering was too expensive, my dress was too flashy, and the guest list included people she didn't know. It got to the point where she suggested I wear her wedding dress, which had been in storage for 30 years. Imagine me wearing a yellow dress from the 90s, but the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks before the wedding, she called me. I remember it. Like it was yesterday, a Tuesday night, I was watching Netflix after an exhausting day at work. When I saw her name on my phone, my heart sank. She never called me to talk, only to complain about something. "Amanda," she said in that cold voice I knew so well, "I need to talk to you about the dress I'm going to wear to the wedding." I thought, finally she's going to consult me about something. Maybe it's the beginning of a better relationship between us. How wrong I was. I decided to wear black, she continued. I almost dropped my phone. Black. At your own son's wedding, everyone knows that wearing black to a wedding is considered disrespectful, as if you were in mourning or didn't support the union. I tried to remain calm and asked if she was sure about this choice. "Yes, I do. It's what I want to wear." The coldness in her voice gave me chills. I tried to explain that it might not be appropriate, that people might misinterpret it, but she just said, "It's none of your business what I wear. You're not in charge of my life." When I told Ricardo, he was torn. On the one hand, he knew it wasn't appropriate. On the other, he didn't want to fight with his mother. Leave her alone, honey. If she wants to embarrass herself, that's her problem. But I knew it wasn't just about embarrassing herself. It was a statement. She was publicly saying she didn't approve of our marriage. The next 2 weeks were terrible. I could barely sleep, imagining what the wedding day would be like. My mother tried to calm me down, telling me that what mattered was our love, that we shouldn't care what others thought. But how could you not care when the groom's mother was clearly boycotting her son's own wedding? The big day arrived. I was at the salon early, getting ready with my bridesmaids. The atmosphere was great. Everyone was excited, joking around, and helping me relax. For a few moments, I even managed to forget about the situation with Donna Marcia. The dress was perfect, the hair and makeup were gorgeous, and I felt like a princess. We arrived at the church an hour before the ceremony. It was a beautiful church, with colorful stained glass windows and wooden pews that my grandmother had personally chosen. The venue was decorated with white flowers and pale pinks, just as I'd always dreamed. The guests began to arrive, and I could hear the buzz from inside the room where I was getting ready. 15 minutes before the ceremony began, one of my bridesmaids came running up to me. "Amanda, you have to see this." Her tone startled me. I went to the window overlooking the church entrance, and what I saw left me speechless. There was Donna Marcia, stepping out of a black car, wearing an all-black outfit. It wasn't just a discreet, dark dress. It was a full-on mourning look. A floor-length black dress, black shoes, a black purse, and surprise a black veil on her head. She looked like she was going to a wake, not her own son's wedding. The guests at the entrance fell into absolute silence. I could see the shocked expressions on everyone's faces. Some whispered to each other, others simply froze. It was a surreal scene. My maid of honor took my hand and said, "Don't worry about it, Amanda. Today is your day." But how could I not care? How could I ignore that public display of disapproval? I felt tears welling up in my eyes and had to take a deep breath to keep my makeup from smudging. My bridesmaids formed a circle around me, shielding me from those pitying looks I could feel even without seeing them. The worst part was that Ricardo hadn't arrived yet, so he didn't know what was going on. I was torn between telling him or letting him figure it out on his own. I decided not to say anything at that moment. I didn't want to ruin his day either, and besides, he would probably confront his mother right there, in front of all the guests. The music started playing, and it was time to enter. My father came to pick me up from the ballroom, and when he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "You look beautiful, daughter," he said, kissing me on the forehead. But I could see the worrying on his face. He had also seen Donna Marcia. We began the walk to the altar. Each step felt like an eternity. I could feel the eyes of all the guests on me, but I also knew many were looking at my mother-in-law in black sitting in the front row. It was as if two ceremonies were happening at once, my wedding and her silent protest, when I arrived at the altar and saw Ricardo waiting for me with that beautiful smile that had made me fall in love with him 5 years earlier. For a moment I forgot everything. He was radiant, moved, and when our eyes met, I felt like nothing else mattered. My father handed me over to him with a firm handshake and a whisper in Ricardo's ear, "Take good care of her." The ceremony began, and the priest was delivering his sermon on love and commitment. I tried to pay attention to his words, but it was impossible not to notice the guests' discomfort. Some people whispered softly, others cast furtive glances at Donna Marcia. The tension in the air was palpable. Then something happened that no one expected. Not me, not anyone else in that church. Halfway through the ceremony, when the priest asked if anyone had any objections to the wedding, there was that usual silence that always follows at these moments. Normally, no one says anything, right? It's just a formality, but not this time. Donna Marcia slowly rose from the front. While the creaking sound of the pew echoed throughout the church. Everyone turned to look at her, including Ricardo and me. My heart raced, and I thought, now's the time she's going to say she's against the marriage. She walked to the center of the aisle, right in the middle of the church, where everyone could see her clearly. The black veil partially covered her face, but her serious features were visible. The silence was so profound that she could hear the people breathing. Then she did something completely unexpected. She removed the veil from her head, revealing her neatly combed gray hair, and began to cry. It wasn't a quiet cry, but tears streaming down her face as she looked directly at Ricardo and me. She started, but her voice faltered. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I need to apologize." The entire church hung in suspense. My legs felt weak, and Ricardo tightened his grip on my hand. "Amanda," she said, turning fully to me, "I wore black today not because I'm mourning my son's wedding. I wore black because I'm mourning my own actions." Her tears grew deeper, and she continued, "I'm mourning the bitter woman I've become, the terrible mother-in-law I was to you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked at Ricardo and saw that he, too, was moved, his eyes welling up with tears. The guests were completely silent, hanging on every word. "When my husband died 5 years ago," she continued, "I closed myself off from the world. I was so afraid of losing Ricardo to that I ended up creating a barrier between him and anyone who might steal him from me. But you didn't come to steal my son, Amanda. You came to love him, and I was too blind to see that." At this point, I was crying too. All my bridesmaids, my family, the guests, everyone was emotional. It was like we were watching a movie, but it was real. It was happening at my wedding. I wore black today, she said, beginning to remove the black coat that was over her dress too. Symbolized the end of the bitter person I was. When she removed the coat, she revealed a beautiful dress underneath, an elegant shade of royal blue with gold trim. It was absolutely stunning. I wore this dress to show that I'm being reborn as a mother-in-law, as a person, and as a family. She walked to where we were at the altar, stopped in front of me, and held out her hands. Amanda, can you forgive me? Can you give me a chance to be the mother-in-law you deserve? I was so emotional I couldn't speak. I just nodded and hugged her tightly. It was one of the most emotional moments of my life. Ricardo hugged us too, and there, at the altar, in front of all our friends and family, our family truly came together for the first time. The priest, who was also visibly emotional, waited a few seconds for us to compose ourselves and then said, "Well, I think we can continue with the ceremony now." Everyone laughed, breaking the tension and transforming that dramatic moment into something beautiful and unforgettable. The rest of the ceremony was perfect. The tears streaming down my face were now tears of pure happiness. When Ricardo and I kissed after saying "I do," the church erupted in applause. Donna Marcia was one of the first to stand and clap, smiling like I'd never seen her before. At the party, she was a completely different person. She chatted with all my family members, complimented the decorations she'd previously criticized, and even danced a slow song with me, apologizing again and promising that from then on it would be different. And you know what's most incredible? She kept her promise. Today, 3 years later, Donna Marcia is more than a mother-in-law to me. She's become a second mother. She helped me when Ricardo and I were struggling financially. She took care of me when I was sick. And when we found out I was pregnant with her first grandchild, she cried tears of joy. Sometimes she tells me she planned the whole act for weeks. She bought the black dress especially for it, rehearsed her speech in the mirror, and even asked a psychologist friend for help finding the right words. She knew she needed a big, dramatic gesture to demonstrate her genuine change. The black coat she took off during the ceremony today is stored in my closet. She gave it to me on our first wedding anniversary, saying it was a symbol of transformation and that I could wear it whenever I wanted to remember that people can truly change. Many people ask me if I was mad at her for creating all that drama at my wedding, but the truth is, I wasn't. That moment became the most special and unique of my life. How many people can say they had a mother-in-law who literally transformed during their wedding ceremony? The story became famous in our family and among our friends. Whenever someone complains about their mother-in-law, they call me to tell the story of the mother-in-law who showed up in black at the wedding. But I always end by saying that, in the end, she didn't show up in black to curse us. She showed up in black to bury the person she no longer wanted to be and be reborn as someone better. And that's why I believe everyone deserves a second chance, that people can truly change when they acknowledge their mistakes, and that sometimes the scariest moments in our lives can turn into the most special ones. My mother-in-law taught me this on the most important day of my life, and for that I am eternally grateful. Now, whenever I see a bride complaining about her mother-in-law, I tell her this story and say, give her a chance. Sometimes, behind the most difficult person, there's someone who just needs love and understanding to transform. And when that happens, it's magical.